Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and the culture. It's WallBuilders Live. We're talking about the hot topics of the day from a biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective, and we are glad you're here with us. We're also here with David Barton, America's premier historian and our founder at WallBuilders. Tim Barton's a national speaker and pastor and president of WallBuilders, and I'm Rick Green, former Texas legislator and America's Constitution coach. You can find out more about us at WallBuildersLive.com. WallBuildersLive.com. You can get a list of the stations we're on all across the nation. You can also get into the archive, so if you missed some shows over the last few weeks and you'd like to hear some of those interviews we have during the first part of the week on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, then that's all available at the website. And then also our Foundations of Freedom Thursday programs. Those are the programs where we answer your questions. So send your questions in, radio@wallbuilders.com, and that's a great time for us to dive into those principles that you are curious about and wanting to apply to our current culture. And then Fridays are Good News Fridays. I like listening to Good News Fridays because I need that pick-me-up. I need to know we can win those victories all across the country. All of that is available at wallbuilderslive.com. Check it out today. While you're there, please consider making a contribution. We are a listener-supported program. That means the program happens because of listeners' support. So thank you, all of you across the country that send in those monthly or some of you one-time donations. We sure appreciate that as we're approaching the end of the year. Please consider us as one of your tax-deductible contributions. Every time you contribute, what happens, we're able to reach more people. We're able to spread the truth to more individuals. We're able to train more pastors, train more legislators, train more young people. You're literally locking shields with us when you donate to WallBuilders Live. So thanks for coming alongside us. Check that out today at wallbuilderslive.com. And then also consider joining us on Monday nights in our biblical citizenship class. That's a live class with 30,000 people across the country, and you can be a part of it. It's never too late to sign up. You can join in the middle of a class if you like. Check that out at biblicalcitizens.com. That's biblicalcitizens.com. All right, David and Tim, later in the program, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert will be with us. Another speech on the House floor, just fiery, just speaking truth, talking about principles of liberty and life. I guess the right order would be life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are the things we fight for around here.
Yeah, and it's really fun to point out that Congress has changed over the years in the sense that, Tim has pointed out before that this current Congress, 91% of the current members of Congress profess to be Christians. Now, that means Pelosi and that means folks like that, and you kind of go, well, now wait a minute. They really don't believe what the Bible teaches exactly. So they may be professing Christians, but they're not biblical practicing Christians in that sense. And what we have seen in the last several elections is we have an increasing number of biblically practicing Christians who actually know what the Bible says in areas, and they stand and defend it, and they defend it with conviction. And Lauren Boebert is one of those. She's one of that growing group of folks that really are biblically acting, biblically thinking, very politically astute, and because of all of that, they have great backbone, and they will say things that I think folks even 4 to 6 years ago would have been afraid to say in Congress for fear of being attacked. But this new group that's come in the last 3-4 elections, and it's a growing group. It's not a majority yet. It's probably 1/4 of the Congress. It's probably half of Republicans. But this group really is firm on its convictions, and the Democrats are actually being so radical on their side that is pushing more and more people into having firm convictions. And so folks that used to be like economic Republicans are now becoming social Republicans because Democrats are pushing so hard. I mean, the bill that they passed in Congress just a week and a half ago, Pelosi, it's a pro-abortion bill that says states are not allowed to have any restrictions at all on abortions. The federal government's going to take over all abortion laws, and we're not going to have states have any voice in this. And our federal abortion law is going to be the most radical thing you've ever seen. You cannot do anything to restrict abortion up to the day before birth, so essentially up to infanticide. And even the Republicans that have been just kind of economic folks or for military folks, we want more for the military or we want to get spending under control, even they're coming out now saying, wait a minute, the social issues, the Democrats have gone too far. And I think that polarization is part of what's actually pushing America. About 70% of the nation did not agree with the position held in that Democrat abortion bill. And so that's part of why we're being able to elect folks like this. But Lauren is a great example of what this most recent freshman class, there are so many of them that look like in that class. And it really is refreshing for those of us who want to see somebody stand and fight for values and stand and fight for the country and stand and fight for the Constitution.
And like you said, she's one of many. I mean, there's many others that got elected in this last cycle, and it kind of it blows that image of a lot of people have of everybody in Congress is bad. There's no good members of Congress. There are, in fact, a lot of them. We get to work with a lot of those members of Congress and legislators across the country, so it's encouraging when we see them stand up, and it's encouraging for the people that are listening right now that may not be familiar with a lot of these members. So as we're going to break, you're going to hear Lauren Boebert on the House floor in Congress talking about the life issue. This was just a few weeks ago, and it just gives you the idea of the type of members of Congress that we're sending right now. These are good people that understand life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is Lauren Boebert on the House floor. When we come back, she'll be with us right here on WallBuilders Live.
I rise to speak in defense of those who cannot defend themselves, the voiceless, the unborn. I rise to say what we all know to be true, that the human life begins at conception, because we know science is real, that more than 60 million babies have been ripped from their mother's wombs since Roe versus Wade. We're no less valuable or worthy of life than any of us here today. And that no taxpayer should ever be forced to pay for abortion. Abortion is not health care, it is murder. I will not stand by quiet. I say Planned Parenthood can go fund themselves.
Hey, this is Tim Barton with WallBuilders. And as you've had the opportunity to listen to WallBuilders Live, you've probably heard the wealth of information about our nation, about our spiritual heritage, about the religious liberties, about all the things that makes America exceptional. And you might be thinking, as incredible as this information is, I wish there was a way that I could get one of the WallBuilders guys to come to my area and share with my group, whether it be a church, whether it be a Christian school or public school or some political event or activity. If you're interested in having a WallBuilder speaker come to your area, you can get on our website at www.wallbuilders.com, and there's a tab for scheduling. And if you'll click on that tab, you'll notice there's a list of information from speakers' bios to events that are already going on, and there's a section where you can request an event to bring this information about who we are, where we came from, our religious liberties and freedoms. Go to the WallBuilders website and bring a speaker to your area. This is Tim Barton from WallBuilders with another moment from American history. The Second Amendment to the Constitution, which guarantees to every individual the right to keep and bear arms, has been targeted for years now by those who are determined to dismantle the individual right to self-protection. Opponents argue that only the militia, the military, and law enforcement are to have and use firearms. But those who wrote the Second Amendment strenuously disagreed, including founding father Richard Henry Lee, a signer of the Declaration, a president of the Continental Congress, and one of those who actually framed the Second Amendment. He declared, "To preserve liberty, it is essential that the whole body of the people always possess arms and be taught alike, especially when young, how to use them." For more information about Richard Henry Lee and the history of the Second Amendment, go to wallbuilders.com.
Lie number 2. Rape victims need abortions. Wrong. They need love. They need support. They need safety and healing. They needed a Glock 19 when it happened.
Welcome back to WallBuilders Live. That clip you were just listening to, also Congresswoman Lauren Boebert on the House floor, and she is here with us right now on WallBuilders Live. So good to have you all the way from Colorado. Congresswoman from Colorado, Lauren Boebert. Thanks for some time today.
Rick, I am doing great. Thanks so much for having me on. I love you and your listeners. You are my people. It's a breath of fresh air to be talking to you and not these swamp creatures in D.C.
Well, we feel the same way about you, and actually every time you give a speech on the House floor, it's a chance for us to get truth and get somebody that's actually telling it like it is instead of all of the, mamsy-pamsy, both Republican and Democrat out of D.C. So thanks for being there. Thanks for being a breath of fresh air, for being a true champion of liberty. Getting a lot of press right now over your comments about rape victims, which I thought you were spot on. Saying, abortion is not what we should be throwing at them. Actually, we should be giving them love. And you said, and they should have had a Glock 19. Your point is, if they'd been able to defend themselves, they wouldn't be in this position. Why don't we talk enough about that?
I'm wondering the same thing, Rick. Abortion, I believe that this is one of the greatest sins of our country. Over 60 million babies have been killed since Roe versus Wade. And that there's so much potential for our country and our world that is lost because those lives were lost. And I believe that God's Spirit dwelled in each of those children at the moment of conception, and that these children should have been protected. When talking about being pro-life, abortion advocates often ask, well, what about the cases of rape? Well, first of all, this is an incredibly small percentage of abortions, less than 2%. And secondly, I don't want it to come to that. When I said they need a Glock 19, these victims, these women, I meant that. I want women to know how to use a firearm and to carry one with them. So if, God forbid, someone tries to assault them, it's the woman walking away and not the assailant. I do not support the killing of preborn babies, not because of their skin color, impairments the child may or may not have. You know, we've seen doctors be wrong when diagnosing these children in the womb. We've seen ultrasounds that were not accurate or whatever the case may be that is going on when this child was conceived. But I'm incredibly proud of the progress we're seeing throughout the country to protect the preborn. We truly are making gains. And since 2019, 9 states have passed heartbeat bills. And Rick Green, you know this firsthand, right there in Texas, there is a new law in place which is literally saving lives today. In just a few years from now, there will be children attending elementary school with smiles on their faces and running gleefully into their classrooms because Republicans took a stand for life. And we just praying for a spirit of boldness for our Supreme Court justices right now.
Amen. Oh, so good. I love the image that you just planted, too, in my brain of those children. It's so much more than just a policy decision and all of those things. It's that child that will be running and smiling and bringing joy. I was just telling my wife yesterday, I was like, you know, being a grandpa is absolutely the best thing on the planet. I just have to think about my granddaughter smiling, and I get a smile on my face. I think about her, you know, running around and being crazy, and I get a smile on my face. It's such a gift that God gives us with these children. Listen, I know that you are like a war horse. I mean, you run to the fight. You're not afraid of that. You don't the attacks and all that doesn't bother you. It actually spurs you on. But I think they just missed the boat on this attack on you over this speech that you gave on the floor. You're a policymaker, and essentially what you were saying was, as we make policy going forward, the best thing we can do to have fewer rape victims is to make sure that more women are trained and armed and able to defend themselves. That's what I heard in what you were saying.
Absolutely. And that training is the most important aspect of all of this. Anyone who is running out and purchasing a firearm for the very first time, please go to a good training school, a class, and learn how to properly use your firearm. We see accidents for 2 reasons. Either someone is ignorant or careless. They either don't know what they are doing with a firearm, or they think they know so much that they ignore the basic principles of firearm safety. So the training is the most important component. Look, I have a restaurant where I have waitresses open carrying as they're serving burgers to our customers. And before any of them straps a firearm on their hip or their thigh, they go through training. And I want to make sure that they are familiar with their firearm, they are accurate with it, and they know the potential dangers. If you don't have good trigger discipline, if you're not treating every firearm as though it's loaded, if you are pointing your muzzle in an unsafe direction, if you don't know what's beyond your target, all of these things matter, and that's when you see accidents happen.
So good. Oh, so good. Okay, so last thing, I want to talk about the role of government here should be to protect its citizens and protect their rights to be able to protect themselves. And instead, we disarm women. This makes me so angry when we disarm young ladies on college campuses that have the training and that could defend themselves. And we know the stories of girls that get raped or killed that could have defended themselves. And this is the great equalizer. I mean, if you're a 105-pound girl and a 300-pound linebacker is attacking you, you've got to have that firearm to defend yourself. When states pass laws or the federal government passes laws to prevent you from being able to have that weapon everywhere you go, they're literally putting you in danger of rape or your life being taken. I assume that infuriates you the same, and the proper role of government should be to defend your right to carry that weapon, not prevent you from having it with you.
And that's exactly right. And that is why we have the Bill of Rights. And even beyond that, the most fundamental right is the right to life. So we have this Bill of Rights that is not given to us by greedy, dirty, corrupt politicians. These are our God-given rights, and government is instituted to secure these rights, to protect these rights. And we, the governed, give consent to be governed, but we don't give consent to have government take our freedoms from us. And they make a new gun law, a new gun control law. It only lessens our ability to defend our lives. You're exactly right. A firearm is a great equalizer. It is the equalizer. I need a tool to be able to defend myself against a larger potential aggressor. And a firearm is a great tool for that. You know, I've had people tell me, why don't you throw rocks at someone? Well, who says that I'm a great aim with a rock, you know? And I can't throw a rock as quick as a bullet can fly, that's for sure.
That's right.
So all of these laws just restrict our ability to protect ourselves, and that is why I am against every single inch that they try to take away from our Second Amendment rights.
I just had this image of you as King David, literally running with the slingshot and slinging that stone. So you may not be able to throw the rock, but I could see Lauren Boebert being able to use a slingshot to take down the giant. Sorry, go ahead.
Just like David, I would be shouting the whole way. You never run at your giant with your mouth shut.
I love it. I love it. Lauren, how can our listeners pray for you? You're on the front lines. You're in the fight every day. You're helping others that are in the fight. You've got an incredible voice right now for such a time as this, and we want to lift you up. So how can we encourage our listeners to pray for you and support you?
Thank you so much. Our nation needs prayer right now, and we need to be reaching out to people. But I think all members of Congress and public servants in these positions need God's wisdom on a daily basis. And that's what I ask for regularly, because I do believe that there's a grace for this. I believe that there's anointing. God is calling leaders to these positions. He is removing corrupt politicians and installing leaders. But still, we are people, and without God's grace, we will never be able to accomplish all that He has planned for us, His will for us. I remind myself on a regular basis that the anointing of God will take me places that my character cannot keep me. So I need Him with me each and every day, leading and guiding me. And so if I could just ask for prayers of support, that God would continue to give me wisdom and revelation and what's going on, that the Holy Spirit would just influence everything that I do and put me in the right rooms with the right people and at those tables where important conversations are being had. I believe there needs to be more Christians seated at these tables right now, especially in this time, because the world is searching for answers, and Christians have those answers because the Creator lives on the inside of us. And so we need to be in those conversations and giving them the answers that they are searching for. And all the support to keep me coming back to Congress and keep me in this fight is much appreciated. My website is laurenforfreedom.com, and we have supporters from all over this great country, and I am so grateful for each and every one of them. And thank you so much, Rick, for your platform and everything that you are doing in this time for this movement. I believe that it's so much more than a podcast, a radio show, a TV show, schools. I believe that you are participating with the very plan that God has for our country right now.
Amen. Right back at you. Everything you just said just moved a lot of people off the fence that had been feeling the calling, thinking, God's calling me to this. People have encouraged them to do it, but they're thinking, I don't know if I have everything. You just pushed them off the fence into the right column to get involved and go run. School board, city council, state legislature, Congress. Get out there, folks, and run. Okay, website, laurenforfreedom.com. Last question, you're redistricting, your district going forward. Has that been settled out? Do you know yet how that's all going to play for you?
We'll know on November 1st if the Supreme Court accepts the district map, but things are looking pretty good. No matter what, it's going to be a tough fight because I didn't come to D.C. to just be a part of clubs in Washington. I'm actually doing what I promised the people back home that I'm doing, and so I am the number one target in Colorado for that very reason. So we're not slowing down. We are pressing in each and every day to make sure I'm serving my constituents in Colorado and being a strong voice for them and for millions of others all throughout our country.
LaurenForFreedom.com. And folks, let me tell you how the system works. When someone's as vocal and principled as Lauren is, the system knows they can't control her, that they can't make her a puppet. And so she doesn't get the typical support of the big machine that other members of Congress do. So your support means a lot. LaurenForFreedom.com. We need more champions like her. God bless you, Lauren. We're praying for you. We're supporting you. We're sending money. We're sending supporters. We just appreciate what you're doing. Thanks for standing so firm on the front lines.
Thank you so much, Rick. God bless you, and God bless your listeners. Thank you.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back with David and Tim Barton.
Hey guys, we want to let you know about a new resource we have at WallBuilders called The American Story. For so many years, people have asked us to do a history book to help tell more of the story that's just not known or not told today, and we would say very providentially in the midst of all of the new attacks coming out against America, whether it be from things like the 1619 Project that say America is evil and everything in America was built off slavery, which is certainly not true, or things like even the Black Lives Matter movement, the organization itself, not the statement Black Lives Matter, but the organization that says we're against everything that America was built on, and this is part of the Marxist ideology. There's so many things attacking America. Well, is America worth defending? What is a true story of America? We actually have written and told that story, starting with Christopher Columbus, going roughly through Abraham Lincoln. We tell the story of America not as the story of a perfect nation or a perfect people, but the story of how God used these imperfect people and did great things through this nation. It's a story you want to check out. WallBuilders.com, The American Story.
We're back on WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us, and thanks to Congresswoman Lauren Boebert for joining us as well. And, of course, guys, look, we've talked about self-defense so much on the program. We certainly believe in this first law of nature, just as the founders did, and that was her point. We should not be disarming ladies that need that equalizer, the great equalizer, to be able to defend themselves.
Yeah, and for her to be criticized saying that maybe she's belittling the rape victims, et cetera, I mean, Rick, you pointed out in the interview, it was very clear she was talking about policy. What would have helped these women before the scenario was to have had a Glock 19. The point is, when you have a firearm and you are properly trained with the use of that firearm, which she was very, very clear about, right? Like, we don't want to have an Alec Baldwin situation, right? And not to obviously belittle the families of those involved with the individuals that he killed or injured. But the reality is, this is clearly not someone who understands basic gun safety, which is one of the great ironies when you have people from Hollywood or these leftists who want to give lectures on gun safety, or they actually want to try to ban guns, and clearly they don't have any idea the proper use or the proper safety precautions, right, taken with firearms. Just basic gun safety rules, and pretty much the number one basic gun safety rule is you never point the gun at something you're not willing to destroy. And this is something, right, I'm using Alec Baldwin as an example because it certainly was a tragedy what happened, but this is someone who's been a major anti-gun advocate for a long time.
That's right.
And clearly he doesn't know basic gun safety because the gun that he utilized, right, it was technically a prop gun, and apparently it was loaded with blanks, but with a blank, there's still a projectile coming out the end, like a kind of wadding comes out the end, and if you are standing close to someone and you discharge that on that person, that wadding can go into the person, which apparently, again, a lot of this is still waiting to be discovered, but apparently that's part of what happened. And, well, why were you pointing a gun at anybody in general on the set when this is not in the middle of the movie and the scene you're shooting, right? These weren't people that were actors anyway. All that being said, what Lauren Boebert said in the interview was that clearly we want people to be trained with a firearm, and this is something we've been advocates of for a long time. Rick, the reason that you are such a big fan of Front Sight and taking people to Front Sight, and our family, when we first started going with you guys once or twice a year to Front Sight and getting that additional training for us is so valuable and important. We advocate that every woman ought to be trained in the use of firearms, and everyone ought to carry a handgun.
Not only every woman, every man, every boy, and every girl. We're a big fan of everybody knowing how to use guns.
There's no doubt, but in the context, right, if every woman had a firearm and every woman knew how to use that handgun, right, if every woman had a handgun carried with her on her person, all of a sudden the sexual assaults, the rapes would virtually disappear because, right, maybe the first night, right, 17, 30, 40 guys get shot in the midst of these sexual assaults or rapes.
Yeah.
But when these women are no longer vulnerable and they're no longer these innocent, quote-unquote, victims, it makes a difference. And that was clearly her point. What she was saying is we want to have people that are trained in the use of firearms because the best way to stop these bad guys, and Rick, to your point, right, if you're an 85, a 90, 100-pound woman and a 300-pound linebacker's coming at you,
that's clearly not a physical-to-physical advantage in favor of the smaller person, but the handgun can be the equalizer and a great way to stop a bad guy who's coming to do someone harm or evil. Again, that was her point. And so for people now to misconstrue what she was saying is dishonest, which is not super surprising because we live in an era where there is a lot of dishonesty from the media, from those kind of internet keyboard warriors who want to stand behind their keyboard and criticize people for saying things that actually, if you consider what they said, are very logical and make a lot of sense.
You know, it's interesting, Tim, as you were talking about how important that is. I reminded what Lauren said, that firearm accidents, gun accidents happen for two reasons. One is you're ignorant and careless, or you ignore the principles of firearms and safety. And that goes back to something John Quincy Adams said as well. He said all the gun accidents he knew of in his day were only a couple of accidents, and it was from those reasons. And I think it was Iowa last year that put in place a law that every kid in Iowa has to now go through gun safety courses at school.
And it was for their middle school.
Was it middle school?
Yeah. They had to go through hunter safety, which involves gun safety.
Yeah.
Right? But that was the idea. Iowa, there's a lot of people that hunt, and they said, you know what, we want to make sure our kids are learning these basic things, and there's a lot of families that have firearms in their homes.
And even if they never hunt and never own a firearm, they'll still know how to handle it.
Absolutely. Learn those basic gun safety rules. Learn things that will benefit you in life practically going forward. And Iowa did that. Clearly, we need more of that in the nation, and that was part of Lauren Boebert's point, which we totally agree with.
We certainly do, and we want to invite people to join us. If they'd like to come get that same training, they can join us on a constitutional defense course. We do this about once a month out in Nevada, and you can do a 3-day class or a 5-day class with us. Not only do you learn how to defend your family and learn how to properly handle firearms, but in the evenings we do Constitution training. So you get both the intellectual ammunition to save the Constitution, and you get the physical training to save and defend your family. You can check that out at patriotacademy.com today. We've actually got one coming up at the end of the month, a couple of classes coming up at the end of the month. November 28th and December 2nd are two of our start dates. You need to get signed up for that one by November 10th, so time is running short. Get signed up and join us. You will not regret it. Get that knowledge that you need to defend your family and defend the Constitution. It's at patriotacademy.com. Thanks so much for listening today. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided, forever